Hello there, welcome to a brand new episode of Hop on Comms. It's great to have you here. It's me, Adam, again. The channel's really starting to gain momentum now, courtesy of you guys. It's going from strength to strength, and we couldn't be prouder or happy where it's going. Please continue to spread the word as much as possible, as it really does wonders for us as we continue to try and take over the world. Today's brand new episode is a beauty. We have BennyCentral on the show. Now, if you don't know BennyCentral, Benny was a content creator. He used to play professionally Call of Duty. Then went on to become a presenter for XboxOn, being one of the main faces of their YouTube channel, as well as growing his own channel at the same time. He takes us behind the scenes in this conversation about kind of what that's like to be kind of at the forefront of Xbox, one of the biggest brands and platforms in the world, rubbing shoulders with the likes of Phil Spencer on the regular, and just kind of understanding how that comes to be and what that's like for him, and kind of so we can talk about kind of like the nuances between like Xbox and PlayStation and different kind of like games that he loves to play, and sometimes exclusives that Benny gets a chance to kind of check out as well, to report back courtesy of Xbox. Recently had one of those exclusives. He actually went to play Black Ops 6. Went there to LA, checked it out, played it in advance of its release later on this year, and kind of gives us a bit of an inside scoop as to kind of his findings thus far, what he thinks of Call of Duty, and we talk about Call of Duty on a wider scale too. What is the greatest loadout, for instance? What are the things that you guys, if you're a brand new player, what you should be kind of really turning your attentions to. But we also talk about, how Call of Duty's changed so much over the course of the last 10, 15 years, and the highs and lows of kind of things from advanced warfare to modern warfares, Black Ops, and everything in between. So I love this conversation. We find out a ton as well about the streaming world. There's loads and loads and loads here for you guys. Hopefully you enjoy it. Benny was absolutely amazing. I knew he would be, and love this conversation. Check it out. Benny, how formative were your early years competing as a Call of Duty player, and how did they impact what you do now?
I think it's had one of the biggest impacts in so many ways. It taught me how to work in a team. It taught me the life experiences of just like traveling around the world, kind of going to different venues and places and meeting new people. And then, of course, just having that competitive fire, which I feel like you'll always have if you've ever like competed in anything. That period of time where you're going up against the best players in the world, like week in, week out, and you're constantly having that hunger to improve and get better. I think I carried that with me into everything that I've done, whether it was kind of creating YouTube content, my time working at Xbox, like hosting, presenting, that will just carry through into everything. I'm always looking at how can I get better? How can I improve? Right. And where, most importantly, have I like screwed up?
And there are a lot of screw ups along the way.
Everyone screws up. And if they say they don't, they're lying.
Yeah. The key to success is multiple failures. That's how we learn. That's how we learn. When did your aspirations as a pro shift? Was it like a catalyst for why you kind of stopped competing, or why you kind of explored other ventures?
Like Call of Duty is a really weird one because it's not like games like CSGO or Fortnite where really you play the same game every year. Like Call of Duty, when the next game comes out, the cycle sort of resets. So when a game drops, you kind of learn the maps, you learn the mechanics, you learn the weapons, and then you kind of get to your peak within that game. You're playing like, especially when the game drops, like 10, 12 hours a day. And I remember I decided to stop competing because of a couple reasons. First, Advanced Warfare came out and brought out a new mechanic, which was jetpacks. So people were flying through the air and just like kind of buzzing all over the place. And I just didn't really like it. I was always a slower paced player. I was an anchor and assault rifle player. And with this, it was just so much going on at once. I was like, I don't enjoy this to the same level that I loved boots on the ground Call of Duty. So I was a bit like, I don't want to play it 10 to 12 hours a day. And at the same time, I then had a opportunity turn up to start working with Xbox. Graham Boyd, AC Bongos, for those that don't know him, had been a huge part of Xbox for many years and kind of asked me if I wanted to kind of get involved in XboxOn, which I've now been involved in for 9 years. So I was a bit like, I can't do all the time to stay competing, but there's an opportunity to join Xbox and help build what their vision was with their YouTube channel. And I was like, that's the direction I wanted to go.
Because I remember that time, the Advanced Warfare time. I think that's actually kind of around the time that you and I first met each other. I think COD XP was a thing, and that was around because I was working with a lot of the Call of Duty Zombies guys. And I remember that was the particular one where in the Zombies map, David Hasselhoff turned up. He was just in it. I don't know why. It was a thing.
I've actually got a really funny story about David Hasselhoff.
Tell me, what is it?
I worked in a hotel for a little period of time, and he came up to the door. I had to I was doing room service and opened the door, and it was David Hasselhoff, and he was steaming.
Steaming, like what? Like he'd been enjoying himself.
Yeah, he just had a few beverages.
Yeah,
just
okay.
You know, like.
Why do I imagine that he was in like some kind of leather vest and trousers? I just assume that's just how he rolls.
Just coming out in a towel, like with the room, like kind of like steaming out. You know, like one of those David Hasselhoff adverts.
Yeah. Well, hey there, Benny. Come on in. Yeah, I love it. I mean, with that kind of period of time, you know, you mentioned Xbox, which you know, I think has been really interesting to for me to see kind of you go down that path as well, because going from competing into presenting, was that quite a challenge to kind of suddenly kind of like learn skills in that realm? Was it kind of, were you kind of used to it and things as well?
So it was really weird for me. I was always doing YouTube content whilst competing. I think I was at that bit where we started off when I got into competitive. It was like, no, YouTubers and like pub stompers can compete as well. So I was used to like making videos and talking, and I'd had quite a theatrical upbringing. Like my mum was an actress, and I'd done like acting and stuff growing up as a kid. I did like drama school on Saturdays since like I was little. So those kind of skills I'd always kind of picked up and learned as I kind of went along, like how to carry myself in front of a camera, how to talk, and just do that combination. It's kind of how I got into YouTube in the first place. I was like looking at building like a presenter show reel, and someone who I was playing with was like, oh, have you checked out YouTube? And showed me X-Jaws' videos. It was like, oh, you could probably do this. And I was like, oh, I'm good at Call of Duty. Yeah, I can like, looking at presenting, kind of mash both together, and it just kind of works out how it is now. Like, but it was like, I think the biggest thing was getting used to being in a professional environment. I think that's one of the biggest shocks, because everything up until that point, I'd kind of just done myself. I'd done it the way that I wanted to do it, and like how I thought things should be done. And then going to work with actual professional producers who had years in the industry and had like produced TV shows. Like I'd worked with two producers like Mark Bishop and Matt Cuttle. Like Matt had been a gaming presenter in the past on a couple shows, and I learned so much in terms of like pacing, and I used to talk so fast. Like I'd be like, yeah, I think it's the rookie mistake every YouTuber makes, right? It's like a young like person that starts off and they're like, hey, what's up guys, welcome, I'm gonna just talk about this speed and everything, I'm not going to take a breath because I'm just trying to say it, and they panic, and it's like, actually no, power of the pause, take your time. It's okay.
Yeah, enjoy it. Enjoy the moment. It's so strange, because I went through a very similar path. Saturday drama school for me too, and lo and behold, a presenter in gaming. I don't know what drama schools are doing to us here in the UK.
Did you go Italia Conti?
I went to Sylvia Young.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I know Sylvia Young.
Look at us, two theatre kids.
We'll be going into monologues in a second.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but you're right. You're right. I think one of the main things is because I think people look at presenting as a thing which seems really easy. Anyone could do presenting, and to a degree, that is true. That you can learn the skills to do so, but things like learning those skills to breathe, to get certain things out, to not, because even now I find times that I rush words and I rush sentences because I want to get something out quickly and make sure I kind of keep the energy there, and have my moments for sure. But I think one of the first times actually we worked together was on XO19. I remember back in 2019. It was amazing.
5 years ago now.
Crazy. But I remember because I went there and it was my first time kind of working with the Xbox family directly, and I remember the dedication from the Xbox fans. That you could feel this energy in London was incredible.
It was insane. It's still to this day, I think, one of the best events that I've ever gone to and ever been involved in. Like I can still remember, I got to do I was very, very lucky, and a big reason for it is like we have a fantastic team with XboxOn, which is led up by like Samuel Bateman, who's like the marketing lead for Xbox and for like EMEA. And he's been always been such an advocate for all of our like hosts and team on XboxOn to give opportunities. And I got the opportunity there to open the show, and I was like kind of marched on stage with stormtroopers as like because we had like a new Star Wars trailer to kind of kick it off, and was so fortunate just to kind of like have that atmosphere and just like the noise as soon as we kicked the show off, because obviously we had loads of cool announcements, we had amazing guests, we had gameplay across that weekend, and having that live audience there and reacting to everything. And you'll notice when you go on stage and you're like being ready, it's like your heart is going, and it's just like the same sort of vibes that I used to get when I was competing, where your adrenaline started going on, and then you do start overthinking things because you're like, I think that's what leads sometimes to you rushing words, because things feel a lot longer when you're in that environment and in that time than it actually is. You're like, I've been saying this for hours, and it's actually been like 5 seconds.
Because I think you're spot on with the I guess the pressure, to a degree you might call it pressure. But I think what's interesting in your case too is that you're at the forefront of news, showcase, and reveals for one of the biggest gaming companies in the world. So there's that element too you must think about from time to time, thinking this isn't just anyone. This is Xbox.
I grew up being one of the biggest Xbox fans, starting off with Halo. Like Halo was where I kind of developed my first-person shooter skills. Like I was obsessed with that game growing up, and then getting the opportunity to work with Xbox and on XboxOn was one of the biggest like pinch yourself kind of moments, and especially when you're doing XO19, which is one of the major beats in the calendar for them, where they're doing so much. Like for that show, I actually even went round the world in 10 days for Crossfire X. So I went to Seattle, which was obviously the HQ for Microsoft, as my watch just said that as well. But I went to Seattle to go to Xbox and do an interview there. Then I went to Seoul in South Korea to go to Smilegate, right? And then finished off at Remedy in Helsinki. Like it just in 10 days, it was like it was just like the worst jet lag I've ever experienced. Like it was just to like go there, film, go to the next place, film, just constantly shifting time zones. And yeah, I think I was a bit out of it by the end. But.
And was this all the kind of the introduction to getting to XO19 in London? Was that kind of like the plan to go around the world to land back in the city?
No, so we were doing a video documentary for one of the games that were being announced in that show. So it just happened to be that was one of the things I did before hosting at XO19, and it was one of the best experiences I think I've ever had, because I got to see so many different cultures. I got to see the passion from game developers and the way that they approach games. And yeah, like then just finished off with that show, which as you know was absolutely insane.
It really was. I mean, one thing I couldn't really believe as well is there was the talent team there, and obviously you guys are adored because you are the faces of something that they care so passionately about. But then you had like the senior management of like Phil Spencer was in the building. And I was like, this is Mr. Xbox. I mean, what's it kind of like, when you interact with someone who you know is of that magnitude from a gaming perspective? Like it must be huge as well.
Yeah, but it's so easy with Phil. Like he's one of the nicest people I think I've ever met. And he's got such a great relationship with Charlie as well, who's on the XboxOn team. And like they've got such a great rapport. It's always funny to kind of watch their interviews play out, because like I think over the years they've got to know each other so well as well. Just you also learn so much, and like you kind of realize, like how you always see it like on Twitter, and you get in these kind of universes where everyone's saying their opinion, and like you actually get a real understanding of kind of the direction that they're going and how they're thinking about things, and you're just like. It's just one of those bits where I always say it, whenever you're around anyone that has like incredible knowledge, you just sit and listen, and you just learn so much. And like what I love about Phil as well is he's such a big gamer. Like he's always playing. He's always like this. He just knows more than you do about your games. And you're just there like, all right, okay, yeah, cool. I love that, because it kind of makes you realize that you trust him, because he is a gamer. He is one of us. So you're always a bit like, okay, right, safe hands.
Safe hands. And I felt the same way. I met him for a very brief period, but I thought he was a very kind of a very engaging guy who is very kind of very friendly and very like, despite the kind of like the the kind of level that he is within the company and where he's at, just really kind of like humble, welcome, willing to talk to anybody and anything, kind of saying thanks for being here. This is amazing. We were celebrating this thing together. But I mean, I recall not so long ago, there was a point where I think he made an announcement saying, obviously, there's this ever going battle between, I guess, call it a battle, PlayStation and Xbox, or is this kind of go between of dominance or supremacy? I think there was a moment where he kind of said that at that point, PlayStation was kind of in the lead from a kind of an IP perspective or something or other. How does that affect you guys when you kind of like you obviously being part of that kind of genetic makeup like Xbox? Do those things affect you guys in the way of your kind of like your what you're presenting, how you kind of do you reflect on the brand and think when things like that happen?
I think like from my side, we're always just more passionate about what we're doing. I think it's so easy. It's just like everyone goes on about like console wars and this is better and this. Everyone's going to have their own opinions on that, and it's just especially with the Xbox on. It's just like we just don't get involved in. It's like we've got so many great games. There's so many like amazing like things to play and do and bits of content to make. It's just I don't think it ever gets talked about in like within our group. We're just like, all right, great, what are we going to play now? Right, what are we going to stream? What video are we going to make next? And I think content creation as well has changed so much over the last like since I first hopped on. It used to be like, all right, you make a 5 to 8 minute video and that was it, right? You'd be like, all right, great, this game's coming out, let's make a video on this, and it'd be 5 to 8 minutes of like talking about your favorite things. And now you're doing live streams. You've got your long form videos, which are getting longer as people watch more on TV now than they do on like their phone, because normally if they're on their phone, they're going to watch short form, so they're going to like scroll through shorts or TikTok, and you're having to think about it so much more. Like there is so many things to do, so many things to think about that's just not the one that kind of crosses your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, recently the most recent Xbox showcase as well. I've got Indiana Jones Lego left, right, and center. There's an Indiana Jones game coming out. I'm excited. Okay,
it looked like a movie.
It looks amazing. Like, I mean, because and first person as well is kind of a really kind of unique. I love how kind of machine games have kind of gone down this avenue of let's do an FPS game. But looking at some of the games, Gears of War E-Day's coming out. Got like Perfect Dark. It looks. I mean, what are you most hyped with? What do you get to kind of get the inside scoop on these kind of games? Ahead of that kind of showcase. Because I mean, the calendar and what the launch is coming out. There's so many things to get excited about.
Oh, I said it after watching that showcase. I was like, I've been to the Xbox showcase for over 10 years. Like I remember actually the first one I went to was June 2014 in LA, right? And that for me was probably this year the best showcase I think I've ever watched. I think the game lineup that we've got over the next 12 months is insane. Like I was a Gears of War fanboy. Like I started off on the days of like Gears of War, Halo. Like those were my two games. I used to play couch co-op with my brother. Like my brother was Marcus, I was Dom. And seeing those two in that trailer, I was like, no way. And obviously, as a Call of Duty fanboy, I think it's safe to say, and someone that is like now predominantly makes a lot of Call of Duty content outside of what I do for XboxOn, is the show opening with Black Ops 6. I was like, this is the best thing I have ever been able to be involved in. I was like watching that and going like, Black Ops 6 is coming to Xbox Game Pass day one. Like, yeah, it's just one of those games I think that everyone knows. Like Call of Duty is one of the games that even if someone isn't a gamer, you'll mention Call of Duty and the odds are they'll know what you're on about. And that being part of the Xbox family now, very exciting.
I think about the different IPs as well, with like different where we talk about PlayStation things as well. I mean, do you get? I guess you have an open mind about different launches for different kind of platforms as well, like different consoles. Be it Nintendo or it might be obviously working with Xbox. I guess, are there any blurred lines between kind of independent thought around what you want to play because courtesy of Xbox and also on different systems too?
I play everything. I've always been very lucky to be able to get my hands on every console. Like I've recently just finished playing Final Fantasy Rebirth. So like I was a huge Final Fantasy 7 fan, like as a kid, like loved I've literally Final Fantasy 7, 8. Didn't love 9 as much, but Final Fantasy 10 as well. I even went and replayed that back recently, on Xbox this time, weirdly, which was just one of those bits where I've played everything. I love, like, who doesn't love Nintendo? Like they've got some of the like most iconic games of all time. Like bit of Smash. I think I've played Ali multiple times at Smash. You had on the show recently as well. He does destroy me. Like Pokemon Stadium. Like I remember actually recent. Like I say recently, but I remember like me, Ali, Claire, all playing like Pokemon Stadium and doing like the Rattata like game and all of that. It was like yeah, like I play everything and anything, and I think you always look at that and just be like, yeah, I've got the great privilege to work with Xbox, but I'm a gamer and I will play the games that I'm passionate and care about.
Your work as a creator as well, like, you know, we've talked about your, you know, life as a previous life in some ways of like being an ex-pro player. I mean, how much of like that, you know, that life as an ex-pro have you kind of, you know, talked about Call of Duty? I want to get onto Warzone now, because how much of your life as a pro player has influenced that kind of content creation now? Like it must have a major impact, seeing as it's the same world, Call of Duty, that stratosphere.
It was a big bit, because it was a bit of the direction that I kind of went when I kind of got back into content again. Like I'd always made videos since I joined Xbox, but never to the level that kind of happened. Like when Apex Legends came out, I was making tips and trick videos and guides. Blackout, I was the same. But then when Warzone kind of combined with a pandemic happened, I was like, all right, I've got way more time on my hands. I'm just going to make loads of videos. And I kind of tried to always make sure that I was giving help and advice to newer players. So I'd learned a lot from my time as a pro and like playing at that highest level. And I knew that a lot of that was valuable, especially on a game that was free to play, had millions of new players coming to it. I was like, look, here are my tips and tricks. And it was one of the biggest kind of videos that took off for me. Initially, I did a video which was with like 43 tips and tricks to get better at Warzone. And it was like little things like, all right, what you wanted, like from the start of the game, you want to go for a scavenger contract. This is going to allow you to get some money to do it. Oh, right. Make sure you check your settings, because like a lot of players go for a really high sensitivity and they just can't control their gun. Just try lower and then build your way up. And I kind of took that approach, like kind of sharing the knowledge that I'd gained as a pro to help new players get better. And then best loadouts, best guns to use, so they've got the best chance that they can have to actually winning.
And because you've really jumped in with 2 feet into Warzone specifically, what was the motivation behind that versus multiplayer? What was the kind of like the reason behind focusing, thinking battle royale? That's where I want to kind of really lock into.
Just love battle royale. I love the story element of it. I love the kind of like last man standing Hunger Games side, where I think the story arc and the adrenaline that you get in that final circle is nothing like any other gaming experience. And for me, I enjoy multiplayer, but it did kind of at times feel to me that there wasn't really an end objective. It was like spawn, die, repeat. And especially when there was not like a competitive element on the line, I didn't know what I was always playing for, because it's like, all right, how many times am I just going to run around, rack up 70, 80 kills in a public lobby, and then just kind of, yeah, there wasn't really that story arc. There wasn't as much variation in gameplay, because I think with Battle Royale, and I think one of the reasons it's become one of the most popular genres, is every game is different, because you could land somewhere different. You get different loot. You have these kind of moments that you always remember. It's like, I just end circles of funny things that have happened. It's like, what the hell has happened? Because it's almost like a sandbox experience. Like you go like, how the hell has that just happened? Like, where did they come from? Like a helicopter that flies in and jumps in, or like kind of like squashes you, or just I don't know. There's always just something that you don't expect from a battle royale.
You're right. Every game feels like anything is possible, which I think, yeah, you're right. It's definitely part of the draw. And I love the fact as well that you have multiple different kind of iterations, whether it be solos, duos, squads, whatever it might be. Do you have a preferred way to play? Is it kind of, do you have like a team, I guess, around you can play with, you kind of trust enough that you can deliver the goods and get the dub.
Yeah, like over the years, I've had the privilege to play with a lot of different people, and I think that was one of the things with Warzone. It brought a lot of people together. Like I've played, like obviously, like there's like Ben Stokes who built Forecasts, which was a gaming team. Like I ended up playing with him. I've like been able to like play a lot with like Steve Aoki, who he finishes his gig in like Vegas and winds down playing Call of Duty, so he'll just hop on and play. And yeah, like you'll just find people, you'll be like other creators. Like I played with Ali a lot when he was playing Warzone, like player like Jaff, Westy, like Stoddy, Tactical Brit. Like there's always like loads of people who are up for playing. And that's a nice thing. It's almost like you kind of just like hang out with your friends whilst going on this like kind of high pressure situations, trying to drop a nuke in Urzikstan these days. Though there's a lot of cheaters right now, so you know.
Well, let's talk about the current state of the game, because I think that's for a lot of people, Warzone particularly, because there's obviously Rebirth Island, there's the 2.0. What is the current state of the game? Like how if you've dabbled before and you want to get back in, where are we at?
I think we're like the game is in a much better place now. Like I remember when Warzone 2 came out, it was, I think, the wrong direction. Like from a personal point, I think it became way too slow. It was clunky. They'd kind of built it for a DMZ extraction shooter and not the battle royale that we all had kind of grown to love that was in during the kind of Verdansk periods. And people were like, all right, Warzone 2, and kind of got put off of it. Like you saw it, like if you kind of saw the Google Trends graph, it was like Warzone 2, bang, and then the fall off was massive because it just wasn't the game that people wanted. And I think now they've done a great job in the sense of like kind of bringing up the pace, like making it so it's like got so many different elements of the game, like the weapon balance. They brought the Kar 98K back, which I know is everyone's favorite sniper rifle in like the days of Verdansk. And yeah, I genuinely believe that the game is probably in the best place that it has been, though there is always this thing with cheaters. Like there is a small portion of people who just kind of install some cheats, run around, and it can be quite frustrating when you're just going like, Ricochet, please, just take him down. Which it does do it, but it can be like the most annoying thing when you're like on for a nuke and you get killed by a cheater.
As someone who's not played Warzone for a little bit now, what tends to be the most common cheat, like ways of like cheats? Like is it kind of aimbot kind of side of things, or
it's normally either like walls, so they can see exactly where you are, so like they just know what you're going to do and they can preempt it, which is like can be quite difficult. Because one of the biggest skill things of Warzone is knowing where people are, like being able to kind of read a situation and what someone's going to do, and then trying to counter that. And if you can just see exactly where someone's going to peek or where someone's waiting for you, kind of takes that away. And then the other is just like aimbot rage hacking, where they just press a button, it just locks onto you and they don't miss a bullet. That's the worst. That's the bit where you just like look at it, you go like, what do I do? Like, what am I supposed to do?
And I guess, I mean, has it affected the player base, you think? They're kind of like because of the cheating aspect, which, as you say, is kind of, definitely being cleaned out now and ironed out. Do you think the player base, are players being drawn back into the fold, do you think? Or is there still kind of a way to go?
We're at that kind of time in the life cycle now where we're like 8 months into this year's game. I think it's going to take Black Ops 6 to kind of make a lot of people kind of give it another go. Because it's always a bit, you hear about the new Call of Duty, and especially with it coming to Xbox Game Pass, people who have got an Xbox Game Pass subscription can just hop in and play it. Like, they don't have to necessarily be like, oh, I'm not too sure. They'll hop in, and then you'll be able to have Warzone with like Omni movement. If that's kind of the next kind of big thing, it's going to be so like I got to go play Black Ops 6, and one of the big things that they talked about in the trailer was this new movement system where you can kind of run and sprint in any direction, and that's going to be one of the biggest game changers to Call of Duty that we've had like since Advanced Warfare, probably.
And I mean, I guess for you as well, having kind of evolved from a primarily like a MP player in the kind of the pro scene, a lot of those skills must really benefit you in battle royale as well. I guess with this new kind of movement system, that's one of those things that will definitely help.
Yeah. Oh, it's I always say if you use a controller and you play first person shooters, those skills carry across to any other first person shooter. The base mechanical skills of being able to aim and move around go from game to game. If you are good at Halo, the odds are you will be good at Call of Duty because you've got that movement, you've got the kind of rotation and bits like that. And we've seen it. There's been so many like former Halo pros, like Formal, who've gone and won Halo championships and then come to Call of Duty and then won Call of Duty championships. So yeah, if you play any multiplayer game, any first-person shooter, you're good at them. If you hop onto Warzone, the odds are you will be good at Warzone. And I think Call of Duty is also one of the most accessible first-person shooters. Like the assists that they have in the game, like I know loads of people complain about it. The aim assist makes the game very accessible and fun to play. So yeah, that's definitely a big thing.
I still want to give a massive shout out to Xbox Game Pass in general. I think people, it's one of the greatest things I think to ever come to a console platform is the accessibility. I remember when Halo Infinite came out, day one, I'm there going, I could just play this. It's incredible.
It is insane, and like the amount of games that come out there now, it's like when we were talking about the showcase earlier. It's like every single game, like most of the games are like, oh, get it on Game Pass, get it on Game Pass.
And Game Pass, as someone who, Game Pass on PC has been massive for me as well. Like, kind of things like Sea of Thieves, all these different games that I've just been they've been sat there. Even there's a Gears of War turn-based strategy game that I absolutely loved as well that came out because it was just it was all there. The library is just
and you play games that you don't think you wouldn't necessarily have otherwise tried. Like I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I'd be like 2, maybe 3 games a year. And I'd be waiting around for my birthday or Christmas for those games. And Game Pass just means when a new game comes out or a new update happens to the library, you have a load of new games to play. And it's like, oh my God, I could go play this, I'd try this. Oh, what do I don't know about this one. Like, I wouldn't have gone and bought this normally, but hey, screw it. It's on Game Pass. I'll give it a go.
Yeah, it's great. I could champion it for ages. I think it's fantastic. I mean, we talked a bit about Warzone, but Call of Duty as well, and Black Ops 6, it looked so good. But Call of Duty as a whole, I mean, how are things looking, Benny, for the I guess the franchise in general?
I am so excited. First of all, Treyarch, I think, has always been one of the most loved Call of Duty developers. I think you go back, like I for one, Black Ops 2 was is probably my all-time favorite Call of Duty. I love that game. I think the multiplayer was exceptional. Zombies was good. The campaign was good. Like I don't have a bad word to say about it. And Treyarch with Black Ops 6 have had so long to work on this game. Like normally the dev cycle is so much shorter. They've had I think they've been working on this for 4 years, which just doesn't happen to a Call of Duty game. And like we saw it when they did the announcement, right? And they did the Call of Duty Direct. Omni movement, you've got round-based zombies returning, you've got an incredible looking campaign, you've got multiplayer, you've then got Warzone on top of that. Like whatever you like doing, Call of Duty is kind of gonna have that for you. If you want to play multiplayer, you've got that. And that I know they've gone on about Omni movement a lot, but I think it's because it genuinely is one of the biggest game-changing differences to Call of Duty in a long, long time. Because it does make sense. Like, when you're playing COD, it's like you walk backwards. Like you're sprinting everywhere, you're running around, and then you walk backwards and you suddenly become a snail and you're like, oh, and it does some like I always look at it like Halo, right? Halo, you kind of had that kind of movement where you could kind of move everywhere and you kind of had that kind of rotation. That on Call of Duty with what they've kind of got already is going to be insane. Like sliding backwards, sliding to the side, like kind of doing those like superhero jumps across tables to kind of like whilst gunning someone is going to be a lot of fun. And zombies, I don't think you can kind of undervalue how big a community zombies has. Like that started off as like kind of like a little side project at Treyarch, like because they're like, oh, this is fun, and then became a thing that has become now one of the biggest attractions to Call of Duty, and just like hopping on with a few friends of there and just doing like round based and trying to complete some Easter eggs and get as far as you can is so much fun. If you're a Call of Duty fan, it's an incredibly exciting time because no matter what you enjoy playing, whether it's that single player campaign, there is something for everyone. And the game just seems to be getting bigger and bigger every year, especially with that new Call of Duty engine as well.
Yeah, and it looks. You're right. I think you're right. Zombies has become this juggernaut of a thing as well. I think it's multifaceted now. There's the MP, the classic MP. There's the campaign. There's all these different ways that you can jump in. I mean, in terms of like the acquisition, you touched on that briefly. The acquisition of Activision by Xbox, is that going ahead? Is that still a thing? Is it officially part of the family now?
Yeah, this is like the first Call of Duty that's kind of involved since that happened.
Wow.
So
Is it going to be an exclusive on Xbox?
No.
Okay.
It's I think that's what I think Phil touched on that, but he's always a big fan of people being able to play wherever, and whenever. So yeah, like that'll be everywhere. But I'm very excited for it.
Mm-hmm. I think one interesting thing about the likes of Call of Duty is there's a big aspect of it is the leveling up aspect, the grinding to kind of get yourself the top weaponry, the perks. Tell me.
Prestige is back. Can you remember the day where like there was the prestige system where you'd kind of go 10 prestiges?
I do remember that briefly.
You'd get to 55 and then you'd lose all your stuff. So it's now kind of gone back to that. So prestige is back. So you kind of rank your gun, like you get up to 55 and then you can choose to prestige, right? And then you start at level 1 again. And then you kind of try and get up all the way. And then you get like a cooler icon and you get like extra stuff for leveling like camos or whatnot.
I do remember the prestige, the ones, the twos, the threes, the kind of gold, different badges. Was it different emblems?
Yeah,
or badges
and you'd see someone that is like a 10th prestige, and you'd be like, "Oh my god, they're going to be so good because they've played this game non-stop." And then you'd just be there going like, "Oh, I don't have time to get up there." But yeah, no, that's going to be bad. I'm quite excited because like also I don't know if you've seen like World Series of Warzones going on at the moment. They've also got that tournament at the World Cup. So there's a Rebirth Island tournament there at the start of July. Then like the esports, the competitive scene, I've always like loved keeping an eye on what's going on with like the Call of Duty competitive scene, Warzone especially now. But that's quite fun to keep an eye on. Like they're just kind of been going through the group stages. So the best teams from around the world. Just kind of there's 2 brackets. So you've kind of obviously you've got 2 major ones. You've got EMEA, and then you've also got the US, which are kind of going through, and then we'll kind of meet at a World Finals, which was last year. It was in London. They've not announced where it's going to be this year.
How close were you to putting the suit back on, jumping back in?
I played in the quad. We kind of got to we just fell short last year of the grand finals, so we played in the game the rounds just before the grand finals. But yeah, like 2 years ago, I was still competing. I came 9th in the World Series, I think, for the EU side, which was like still very happy about. But it's just playing the amount that you need to play at a pro level is sickening. And if you are not just focused on being a professional player, you can't compete. It's impossible.
What do you think those, if you had to kind of categorize the real traits that you need to have as a kind of like a top tier Call of Duty pro, what do you think is the kind of consistency that you always see, thinking these are the specific things, the skill sets that really do separate the best from those below?
So I think one of the biggest things is attention to detail. I think that's so important, like being able to like kind of watch back your gameplay, see where you're going wrong more so than you're going right. Because at the top level, everyone's got the best gunny, everyone's got good movement. Like the bits that separate you is that decision making as well. Like the best players know when to move, which gunfights to take, like when how to like survive in the gas and like avoid gunfights, and getting into power positions at those final zones. So you'll see it. There'll be like when you watch rank like a World Series of Warzone, you will never see an end circle like it in your own games. If you are not in a custom game filled with pros, you will never experience what that is, because you will have 30 teams up in the last couple of circles, and everyone's got PDSs. They're all stacked up inside their in buildings and like lockdown areas. There's smoke all over the place. So it's all about navigating. Map knowledge is another huge part, like knowing where you can run without being seen by as many angles as possible, so you can kind of get into a building and lock it down. And you see most people on YouTube like kind of uploading like 40-50 kill games, right, just as themselves. That is not happening in that kind of tournament. Like you will be if you get 10 kills, it is insane. I think Shifty in the latest kind of qualifying round dropped an 18 kill game, and everyone was losing their mind. It's like, he dropped 18 kills. because in those lobbies, the opportunity to do that is so slim. Because like normally you peak, you just have a whole team laser you, and you're out. So yeah, like main skill gaps, decision making, kind of map knowledge, reactions, obviously big bit, but decision making I think is the number one.
I guess that comes with experience as well. The more you kind of compete, get yourself into situations, that's how you're going to learn from those moments.
Just staying calm, like composure is so important. Like so many people would get in there and like feel like they've got to force something or do something that they shouldn't, and it's like no, just actually stay calm, composed, let the kind of like action come to you. And it's what the best players do. It's like they're waiting for that kind of gap for someone else to make the mistake. Because yeah, it's great to see you slide into a room, take 3 people down, and like have those world star moments. But it's more about getting into as few 50-50 gunfights as possible, and always making sure that the odds are stacked in your favor. And that's what the best players do. That's why it always sometimes feels like when you watch someone like Biff or like Hisoka, it feels like they're playing easy players because they're just always putting themselves in an environment that they're going to win. And that's the biggest thing that separates everyone. It's just like they know what you're going to do before you even do it. Thinking ahead. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to go through this flank. It's like, no, they're already watching that. It's really frustrating to play against. You're just sat there going like, great. Because you just they don't miss either. So you walk around a corner and they've just like nailed you, and you're just like, all right, cool. I'm just going to sit here now for 20 minutes until the next round starts.
I mean, you've done these tips and tricks videos on like kind of recommendations and such. What is for someone who is coming back into the fray, who's kind of starting at level 1 and being reintroduced to Warzone? What is the kind of the BennyCentral kind of introductory loadout? What do you think is kind of key just to get yourself back into the swing of things?
See, right now it's always I think that's the hard thing with Warzone. The meta's always evolving and changing. Like right now, you want to be using the Kar 98K and the Superi, which are 2 new weapons with Season 4. Those are like the 2 best guns. But if you're playing in a tournament, there are different things. So you'll probably be running like the Holger 26 or the SVA with the Superi. Like there are different guns for different situations. If you're just hopping in, I'd just use those 2 guns. You can get them in the battle pass nice and early. And you're going to be like at the top. Like sniping with the Kar 98K is pretty easy because you have, as it's a marksman rifle, you get rotational aim assist, which means that if you're like moving your left stick, it's one of the things that a lot of people don't think about. But if you're like strafing to the side, you'll get this aim assist, which kind of like locks you into their plane. So it will kind of like stick onto them. And then all you have to deal with is like the vertical recoil. So it's a big Call of Duty mechanic, but you can then just kind of like strafe, lock it in, and hit your shots. Like it sounds complicated, but like if you do it in game, it's just super easy, and makes aiming COD a little bit easier.
One of the draws for me recently, it's actually quite a long time ago now, was when they had the John Rambo and Bruce Willis skins.
Oh,
the 80s action hero skins.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you're speaking my language now.
I love that. That was one of my favorite. That was in the days of Verdansk. Nakatomi Plaza in downtown.
God, yes.
And, yeah, you'd go there. They would have like the helicopter flying around the top. You'd be like, all right, let me do that. Take that, blow up the roof of C4. Go into the vault. I love that. It was so much fun.
Who would you love to see introduced to the game, Benny? What if you the BennyCentral kind of like creme de la creme skin that we need in Call of Duty?
You know what? I would love, right, especially now it's part of like the Xbox fan. I would love to see like the Gears of War skins. I'd love to have I'd love Marcus and like Dom. Like that would be so good. Just because because I think it's one of the things I love about Fortnite is it's like there's so many different like gaming cultures all coming together, and like kind of the Marvel universe is in there. Like I know it's not necessarily like realistic, but there's people running around like as yellow rubber ducks and stuff now. So I guess that's out of the window.
When you're playing so much, you're spending so much time playing the likes of Call of Duty. Do you get a chance to play those other games like Fortnite? Do you kind of have the unwind it in other ways, playing different things, kind of competitively away from COD, or is that kind of your main focus most of the time?
I try to play games to like wind down. Like if I'm like Call of Duty is enough competition for me. Like I play a little bit of Fortnite, but nowhere near the amount that I would if it was like my game. But like I like playing, like I said earlier, like something like Final Fantasy Rebirth, like just like a chill game. I want to get back into Diablo. I think that's like a load of the XboxOn team are playing Diablo at the moment, and that's really fun.
Yeah.
So something that's just like not stressful, because Call of Duty can be quite a stressful game, especially when it's not going your way. Like, because it's so high octane, it's so quick, and yeah, it's a wind down.
I'm exactly the same because spend so much time on working, looking, playing competitive games that I always have a campaign game on the side. Just if I'm feeling like I've recently downloaded Alan Wake 2. Okay, I wanted
nice. Yeah.
Okay, good. Horror, mental, but good. But it's just something I know it's quite gory, intense, but it's just that frenetic kind of fast-paced nature of most kind of competitive games. Sometimes I don't need that in my life. I need a moment to breathe.
Sometimes you just need to chill out and just almost just have one of those games where you can just sit back and just do something where you don't have to think. And Call of Duty isn't that. If you're not locked in COD, you just get killed. And it's just like, all right, this.
Sometimes open a packet of biscuits, a cup of tea, and just in Alan Wake 2, take someone's intestines out. Kind of do an autopsy on some kind of like disheveled someone, I think, rather. That relaxes me. That's what I need in my life, more of that. But I mean, the thing with, let's talk Black Ops 6 as well. I know as we wrap things up here, but you actually went to that event you mentioned earlier on recently. Going to these reveal events, these hands-on experience, I don't know what you can share or not share, but what was that kind of experience like in general? Was it LA you went to, and what was that kind of like from your experience, kind of being there on the forefront of what's happening with Call of Duty?
Yeah, so we got an incredible opportunity to fly out to Los Angeles this time because that's where Treyarch's studio is. So we got to go to Treyarch, where they developed the game. Myself, a bunch of other creators were out there, and we kind of got taken there. We get taken through like a presentation, like kind of shown what they are doing with this year's Call of Duty. So it was really fun. We went into their like kind of theater. Like they've got this theater in there, which is like insane. And like you're just there going like, oh my God, like this is where it happens. And then we get to see like a load of trailers. They kind of like talk, like they have a load of the devs there to talk us through the campaign, multiplayer, zombies, parts of the game. They didn't touch on Warzone. There was like, all right, you'll have to wait till COD Next, which is in August this year. So I'm very excited about that. Like, so that's where we'll see like the multiplayer gameplay for the first time. We'll get to see Warzone, and whatever else. So it'll be interesting to see if they show zombies. But getting to go there, you get to meet the developers, you get to chat to other creators, which is always so fun because it's so rare that like you'll remember from like events like E3 and Gamescom where you get a load of people together. It's one of the greatest experiences because you get to meet people who have the same passions and like kind of hobbies as you, and you learn so much. It's like, oh, have you thought about doing this? It's like for example, right, how this podcast is recorded. I'm like, I learned so much. I'm like, oh my goodness. And it's like things like that I love being around creators. I love being around other players and who are passionate developers, and you get to see a different angle. And going to Treyarch is like a bucket list for me. So getting to go there, where the game's made, getting to go get hands on with the game there, like you see, and like now when I see like video clips of like on the trailers, I'm like, when they show the studio and stuff, I'm like, I've been there. I see that. That's where I got to play. And yeah, it is fun. It's just because I think a lot of creators, this was just a passion and a hobby. And the fact that it's something that we get to do now and get to go have those experiences is just an amazing experience.
Are they still on the same cycle with obviously Treyarch? Was it Sledgehammer and Raven as well?
So you have Raven Software, you've got Infinity Ward, and then Sledgehammer as well. But it kind of changed. So like Infinity Ward did Modern Warfare 2, and then I think Raven were and 3, and then Raven are heavily involved in Warzone. So different studios look after different areas and bits, but they're all working on the same kind of like engine. So whatever one studio does kind of helps with the next game or the whole ecosystem. But yeah, like it's one of the big things. So you don't realize the size of the teams and studios working on Call of Duty until you kind of get into the nitty gritty. Like you go, it's one of the reasons it's the biggest game in the world.
I mean, campaign wise as well, we've seen kind of like the clips from that. I presume you'll be giving that a go because for me, that is a draw, mate. That is a draw.
I love the campaign. I've always liked. I've liked what they've done in the last previous years as well, where like in MW2 and MW3, they had the play the campaign early. So like I hope they do that again, where you get to play it a week before the multiplayer drops. So you actually have time to kind of like, all right, I'll sit and play through the campaign and enjoy that experience before the multiplayer. 'Cause like as a competitive player, I have to like always just jump on the multiplayer. So it's been nice to have that come out early and play the campaign.
One of the things I always find when the new Call of Duty game comes out, there are obviously always high expectations. People want to see it succeed. You see the likes of the big creators online like the Docs, the Tim, the Tapmans, all the huge creators. How much of an impact do you think the wider creator community enjoying the game has on the success of the franchise as well? Do you think it's a real big factor, or is there that kind of wider player base, the kind of more casual gamer that is going to really excel this too?
I've said this a lot. I think obviously everyone listens to like creator content, but it's still such a small part of the actual player base for Call of Duty. Call of Duty is played by millions and millions of people, like hundreds of millions of people play Call of Duty. And if someone is engaging in Call of Duty content on Twitter, on YouTube, they will most likely still be in a smaller percentage of the player base. And I think from a development point, you have to listen to the 90%. And that's why skill-based matchmaking, though it's unpopular to creators and people like myself, like it's still such an important thing for people to actually hop on and be able to play and enjoy the game. So yeah, though there are massive streamers and content creators, I still think it's still a small percentage of the actual player base. So though take into account what the hardcore say, it still needs to be for the masses.
Benny, whatever happens, you and I will be hooking up online, and you will be helping me reach my prestige 5 or 6. That sounds like a lot of work, actually.
You're not going to 10th. You're not going to get max prestige.
Sure, yeah. We'll find the 160,000 hours that will take for me personally to get there. But but no, I mean, where can everyone find you online as well, Benny? Where can we find your YouTube channel? Whereabouts are you at?
Yeah, it's just BennyCentral, like everywhere, like Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. And then if you want to kind of see what we do on Xbox, XboxOn over on YouTube and TikTok, so, and Twitch as well.
And everywhere. Benny, thanks so much for being on the show. Loved having you, mate.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to watching all the other episodes.
Amazing. Thanks, buddy. See you soon.
See ya.